All right, so let's move on here and get to the next clip. I see there's some super chats. We will get to those in just a second.
Mr. Knowles, I have an awkward question for you about masturbation, of all things. I'm a married man in my 30s, I have a child, and I just have to know, is masturbation without porn a sin? I feel very ashamed when I succumb to the natural urge to masturbate, and I don't know if that is because I've grown up thinking it was sinful, and I psychologically am wired to feel that way, or if it truly is wrong. Of course, so much of the internet tells me to just have at it and be guilt-free, but I don't know how to not have guilt, and I get jealous of those that say they have no guilt. So a sincere thank you for any wisdom on this matter.
Yes, it's wrong and you shouldn't do it. You feel guilt because that's your moral conscience. The people who say that they don't have guilt have, one, dulled their moral conscience, and two, are lying to themselves. And the way you know they're lying to themselves is because of a great bit of wisdom from that political philosopher Norm Macdonald, who said, when you're going into your room to do that thing, with yourself, and what do? Do you open up the window shades really wide open? And you say, hey, everybody. No, you don't. You close the blinds. You close the window shades. And you feel ashamed. People don't talk about that sort of thing openly. And because it's degrading, it's very, very degrading. And it's obviously not what your body was built for and your sexuality was built for. Things have a purpose. The purpose of this glass, not quite as good as a leftist tears tumbler, but the purpose of it is actually to drink wine, though I'm not a lush quite that much. I'm drinking coffee in the morning. The purpose of the paper is for me to read the show. The purpose of my watch is to tell time. The purpose of the sweater is to keep me warm. The purpose of my eyes is to see. The purpose of my mouth is to eat and to taste. And the purpose of some of those other parts, like the ones that Dennis Prager was talking about earlier, the purpose of that is for a woman, not for yourself. So yeah, that's wrong. How do you resist that? Obviously, sex is a huge driver for men in particular. You're married, so I would encourage you to have a conversation with your wife and maybe say, hey, look, I am so drawn to you that we need to express that a little bit more for the generation and education of children and for the unity of the spouses, and so that I don't fall into this sin, which is obviously a sin.
Okay, Pritchett,
that is
your pick. So
that is the it is always wrong answer.
Yeah. Now, well, yeah, that is what he said. I agree with the sentiment of what he said.
Yeah.
Okay. I just think that, as with Crowder at the beginning of the show, that that's not all we can say about it. There's a little bit more we can say.
Yeah. Well, the marriage bed is undefiled. And I if someone were to ask me, is masturbation a sin if you're thinking about your spouse? I would probably say no.
Wait, what was?
If is it a sin to masturbate thinking about your spouse, because that's not using porn, but it's just using mental images from prior sexual encounters or whatever,
It was said to me when I was about 13, 14 years old and asked this question.
Yeah.
And it was said to me, don't you think that, like, let's say your spouse was in the hospital for a little while. Don't you think that she would like to know, or he, that your thoughts are of them? Okay, this does move it into,
like, all your thoughts.
Yeah, like
right?
this does move it into an area where you won't hear a lot of Christian channels talking about this. Yeah. So here we are.
Yeah.
But I think this needs to be talked about because there's a lot of young men who listen to this show, and I think that it's helpful for anyone, but I think it's helpful here. So with your spouse, the setup is just going to be different. Now, you might say it's still sinful. Okay, but it's still not quite the same, and we need to allow for that. I think that you and your spouse need to discuss this sort of thing, and whatever is happening needs to be something that you both know about and are okay about.
Yeah.
Okay. Really, and so there's an ideal situation here, but I think in general, yes, even in marriage, I think it's best if you live out your sexual experiences with your sexual partner.
Absolutely.
That way. Now, that's not all there is to say about this. Here's what I think about up until that point of marriage. People are getting married later and later. I don't know that I think that's a good idea, but it certainly,
Paul didn't either, by the way.
It certainly magnifies it. Yeah. And it certainly magnifies this problem, right? It magnifies, it makes it more likely that you're going to mess up here.
Yeah.
And I think that just as I'm told to be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, and we did a show on that last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever with Nick Quint, just as I'm told to do that, and I realize that I haven't and I won't, I have and will mess up. It's not my intention to do that. That is the repentant posture I think that a young man or woman should have toward this. But but that does not mean like, oh, what does Jesus say I have to do? Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Oh, good. Since none of us can live up to that, we don't have to worry about it. No, the reality is you should aim for perfection. Knowing that you will fail, you should aim with every intention to live for God. Now, I've heard it said in my lifetime since I was a teenager that young people, it's putting too much on them, too much burden on them, too much stress on them, too much expectation to imagine that a virgin boy could marry a virgin girl and they could live together faithfully for the rest of their lives. I can tell you, you may think so, but it can be done. It has been done. And on top of that, not only I'm telling you that after 20 years, more than 20 years of marriage to that woman for me, but I know a guy who he and his wife didn't even kiss until they kissed at their wedding, and they've been married for 25 years or something now and have a wonderful marriage. It can happen. With this issue, perhaps I am falling prey to what those people fell prey to who advised me or told me, well, it just can't be done. Maybe someone can live faithfully in this regard in their life as a young person with self-pleasure and all these kind of things. Maybe they really can do that. But I think there is so much of a likelihood that just as be perfect as your Father's, but we know you'll fail, but you shouldn't it's okay because everyone knows I'll fail. That should kind of be the attitude here is, if you screw up on this, it doesn't mean that you're like this cast out of the kingdom, consigned to the flames, filthy, disgusting person. This is a very common thing that happens, but it also doesn't mean that you excuse it.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. But I do want to say that, like, in marriage, if you're married and you're thinking about because at root here, the issue is lust, right? The problem is lust, and when you're masturbating, if you're not using porn, you are using a mental image of another human being as an object of your own gratification, and that's wicked.
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea is treating another human being as an object, like you say, like a meat bag, walking down the street, when that is a person that God loves and that Jesus died for and has experiences and has a conscious experience and is far more than just their physical body. And when you marry someone, yes, you enjoy each other's physical bodies. This is a great blessing that goes along with marriage, but you're not severing the rest of him or her out of the equation.
Right.
You know, that they're basically just a sex object, like a blow up doll for you. That's not the situation.
I mean, can that happen in a marriage? Sure. Should that happen in a marriage? Never. Right.
And in a marriage in general, you have in a Christian marriage and in a marriage where both people are trying to do things right, then whatever the case may be that you may do in the undefiled wedding bed, as we've discussed. The truth is you have already publicly, legally, financially, in terms of your living setup, decided to share your life with this person and sacrificed for that end. Yeah. And that's just very different.
But if you're a young single man or a woman, I don't know how women deal with this, but if you're single, it seems like a month or two ago, every single fitness influencer that I follow had something to say. It was a big trend. They all had something to say about semen retention. Mm-hmm. So go check out those videos to find out that don't masturbate, and check out some health benefits that'll help your fitness. So go for that.